So far, we have looked at three tools that are available to you to analyze or design a digital circuit. The first one was truth table, the second, a timing diagram, and the third, Boolean algebra. Karnaugh Map is another tool that is available to you, and it is especially useful in reducing a given complex Boolean expression to its simpler form. When you are working with Karnaugh Maps, there are certain rules you have to follow, and you always start with a given truth table. Karnaugh map is best explained by an example. Let's say we are given a Boolean expression which is a function of four variables, and the expression is given right here. The first thing we would like to do is translate this expression into a truth table. Since there are four variables in this expression, I have created a truth table for four variables. That means I have 16 possible combinations. As I mentioned in a previous video, the best way to write a truth table is to start the very left column. The first half rows of the column are zeros and the next half are ones. So since we have 16 rows, first 8 are zeros and next 8 are ones. Then we go into the second column where we make half of the first one as zeros and half of them as ones. So 4 zeros, 4 ones, 4 zeros, 4 ones. Then the third column to the left, 2 zeros, 2 ones, and then final column 0, 1. You can write your truth table in any way you like, but writing this way will make sure that you don't miss any combination. And also this comes naturally in a ascending order. You can see here the very first row is a 0, next row is a 1, then 2, then 3, then 4, then 5, and the last one is 15 in decimal. So it is automatically ordered in the ascending form. Now let's talk about how would we translate this expression into the truth table. This expression is a product of sums. Product of sum is created when your each individual term is added together, and between the terms you have an OR variable. A product of sum is always going to evaluate to a 1. That means that each individual term that is present in the expression evaluates to 1 as well. So all we have to do is identify the row that corresponds to each term and then write a corresponding one to the output F. The rows that will be left after this will be written as zeros. So the very first term in the expression is A bar B C D bar. A bar means that the value of A for this row is 0, value of B is 1, value of C is 1, and value of D is 0. This row is right here. We write a value of 1 for F. Now the next term, A, B bar, C bar, D bar. So A is 1 and the rest of the three variables are 0, which is this row right here. So this is my first term, this is my second term. So this is going to be 1. So first here, second. Now the third term. Third term is A, B bar, C bar, D. A is 1, B is 0, C is 0, D is 1 for this term. Only then this will evaluate to a 1. So that is going to be 1, 0, 0, 1. So which is this next row. This is going to be a 1. Then the fourth one is going to be A, B bar, C, D bar, 1, 0, 1, 0. And that will be 1, 0, 1, 0, and that is going to be a 1. Next one is going to be 1, 0, 1, 1, which is the very next row. Next one is going to be 1, 1, 0, 0, which is the next row. Next one is going to be 1, 1, 0, 1, which is the next row. And the last one is going to be 1, 1, 1, 0, which is the next row. Now all these remaining rows, since these terms do not appear in our expression, they will be equal to 0. This is how you convert a Boolean expression into its corresponding truth table if the expression is given in product of sum format. Let's talk about Karnaugh map. A Karnaugh map is sort of multi-dimensional table, and each cell in the Karnaugh map corresponds to a row in the truth table. Since we have 16 rows, we need to have 16 cells in our Karnaugh map. That means that this is going to be a 4 by 4 Karnaugh map. So for this particular Karnaugh map, we will take two variables on our vertical sides and two variables on our horizontal side. So for my vertical side, I am going to take the variable AB, and for my horizontal side, I am going to take the variable C and D. So the possible combination of values for AB are 0, 0, 0, 1, 1, 0, 1, 1. And that's what I will label each of the rows here. However, the rule is that between any two given rows, only one variable changes its value. So if I label the first row as 0, 0, I can label the next one as 0, 1. The third row here, I cannot label 1, 0 because in that case, both A and B will change their values. So I will keep B at 1 and I will change value of A from 0 to 1. So now only value of A has changed. B stays the same. And the last combination that is left is going to be 1, 0. Another important thing to remember is that Karnaugh map is more like a torus, where there is no beginning and no end. So essentially our last row is connected to our first row. And you can clearly see here that only A changes value between that transition. If you go from our last row to the first row, only A is changing its value. Similarly, for my columns, I will label it as 0, 0, 0, 1, 1, 1, 1, 0. When you are solving a Karnaugh map problem in exam, make sure that you label the Karnaugh map correctly. This is one of the major mistakes students make when they are labeling the Karnaugh map. Now let's transfer our values from the truth table into Karnaugh map. If you look at the first row, the values of A, B, C, and D, they are all zeros. Which cell corresponds to that row? Well, it's actually this top left cell because value of AB is 0, value of CD is 0. So the value of F for this row is 0, so I am going to transport that value over here. Now the next row is 0, 0, 0, 1, which is same row but one column over because the value of D is 1. So that value F for this row is 0 as well, so I write a 0. Next row is 0, 0, 1, 0. Now keep in mind it's not the column next over because in this column both C and D are 1, whereas in row 3 my D is 0. That is my last column in the row, which is 0, 0, 1, 0. So value of that is going to be 0. The value of the fourth row, 0, 0, 1, 1 is 0 as well, so I will go ahead and write that. I am done with my first 4 rows up to this point. Let's label it in terms of 4 rows each so that we don't make a mistake. Now in the second group of 4, I start with AB01, which is my second row, and CD00, which is my left column. And the value of that is going to be 0, so I write a 0. Next is 0101, so it is the next column. The value of that is going to be 0 as well. Next one is 0110, which is the last column in this row, last cell. So that is going to be a 1, which is this value right here. So I transport it into its correct column. Finally, 0, 1 and 1, 1 row translates into this cell here, and that is going to be 0. We are done with this second set of 4 as well. Now the third set of 4. In this row I have A1, B0, C0, D0. So which is my last row. So don't make a mistake of writing this third set into the third row in Karnaugh map. So it is my last row and leftmost column, and the value of that is going to be 1. Next row is 1001, which is this cell over here. It is 1. Next row is 1010, and that is this cell over here. And the last one in this set is 1011, which is this cell. So I write a 1 over there. Now I move to the last set of 4 rows here. 1100, which is my third row here and my left column. So that value is 1. Next value is next row is 1101, and the value of f for that is going to be 1. Next is 1110, which is this last cell over here. Value is 1, and the last value is going to be 0. Once we have transported all the values from our truth table into our Karnaugh map, the next step is to group the values together or group the cells together. And we are grouping the cells where we have a value of 1. Our objective during the grouping is we want to make as big a group as possible. But the groups can only be in rectangular shape. They cannot be diagonals, they cannot be L-shaped, and you can only group the ones that are adjacent to each other. You cannot jump over a 0, for example, here between these two ones together. So let's get started with it. So I can clearly see that this is a group of 4. I can make a group of 4 over here. So I will call this my group 1. Now I can see that these 3 are a group, but remember, one more rule for the grouping is that the group can only be of members 2 raised to power n. That means I can make a group of 1, group of 2, group of 4, group of 8, group of 16, and so on. I cannot make a group of 3. By looking this over here, I can see that this is a group of 2. But what if I combine these two with the 2 over here and make a bigger group? This is actually allowed. You can overlap 2 groups as long as there is at least one cell that is not common between the 2 groups. So essentially we do not want 100% overlap. That would be redundant. But as long as there is one cell that is not part of the same 2 groups, then you can make a bigger group. So I am going to make a big group over here. And I will call this my group number 2. Finally, I can see that these 2 are left by themselves. So I will simply go ahead and I will group these 2 together, and I will call it my group number 3. Next, I am ready to write my expression f, and I will call it my simplified f, fs. Now I have to write one term for each of the groups, so I can clearly see I will have 3 terms in this simplified expression. When I am writing the expression, I need to follow some rules. The very first rule is that if a variable within the group changes its value, we throw it away. We only keep the variables that do not change the value. Now, if the value is 1, we keep that variable as it is. If the value is 0, we will invert the variable. So we'll put a bar on it. So let's start with group 1. For group 1, the variable, it's spanning these last 2 rows over here. So for variable a and b, a keeps its value at 1, whereas b value changes from 1 to 0. So I will throw away b and I will keep only a. So a, and since a is 1, I will keep it as it is. I will AND it with any other variables that might exist. So I look at variable c and d. Since this group spans these 2 columns over here, I will look at the values of c and d. So c is 0 here as well as in the next column, whereas d changes from 0 to 1. So I throw away d and keep only c. But c is 0. So remember, whenever we have a value of 0, we will bar it. Next, I will write my expression for group 2. And whenever a term for group 2, And whenever I am writing a term, in between the terms, I will put in an or symbol. So for group 2, since it spans all 4 columns, the values for C and D continuously change. Value of C changes between the first 2 columns, value of D changes between the next 2 columns, and so on. So we throw away C and D. On the other hand, since it's a single row, value of A and B will not change. So we keep both A and B. Now value of A is 1, so I will write A, and value of B is 0, I will write a B bar. Finally, I have my third group over here. So for the third group, I can see that it is between these 2 rows over here, and value of A changes from 0 to 1 for these 2 rows where my group 3 spans. So I throw away A and keep B. B is 1, so I will keep B as it is. Since this group only spans one column, which is the rightmost column, I keep both C and D. C is 1, D is 0. So that means I will keep C as it is, and I will take D with a bar. This is my simplified expression that will produce exactly the same output given in this truth table as is produced by this given expression at the beginning. Let's take a look at one more example. This is a question from one of the previous exams. I have already set up my Karnaugh map, so all I have to do is transfer the values from my truth table into Karnaugh map and then reduce it. So the first thing I will do is I will mark my set of 4s so that I don't make a mistake, and then I will start transferring. So the first set of 4, the very first row is this leftmost column. All variables are 0. So it is a 1. So I will write a 1 here. Next row is a 0. So I will write a 0. Next row is a 1. And remember, it is not the next cell, but the cell over, because value of CD is 1, 0 for this cell over here. So this is a 1. And then the last row in this first set of 4 is 0, 0, 1, 1, which is this cell right here, is going to be a 0. Now next set of 4, my AB is 0, 1, so that is the second row, and I start with a 0, 0, 1, 0. The third set of 4 is 1, 0, 0, 0, 1, 0, 0, 0. So I have a 1 here, then a 0, then a 1 here, and then a 0. And the final set of 4, 0, 0, 1, 0. So 0, 0, 1, 0. This is an interesting Karnaugh map for a few reasons. The very first reason is to emphasize the fact that Karnaugh map is torus, which means that your first row is connected to the last row and first column is connected to the last column. So when you are going to do the group, you can essentially group them such that you are grouping this corner with this corner, which can also be grouped with this corner and this corner. So I can actually make a group of these 4 corners together. So that would be my one group. And then to accommodate for these 2, I can also include these other 2 that are already part of group 1 to make a bigger group. So this is going to be my group 2. So my Boolean expression for this Karnaugh map is going to be, so for the first group, if you look at the 2 rows, the very first row and the last row that are connected to each other, A is changing its value, B is keeping its value constant, which is 0. So I will write a B here and I will put a bar on it because the value is 0. Similarly, for this group, I have very leftmost column and the rightmost column that are part of this group. And between these 2 columns, value of C is changing, whereas D stays constant at 0. So I will put an and a D bar because D value is 0. Now the expression for the second group over here is simple because it spans all 4 rows. So both A and B are going to be thrown away. whereas both C and D will be kept. So I will have C as it is because it is 1, and then D is going to be barred. And between the two terms, I will put an R. So my simplified expression for this truth table is going to be B bar, D bar, R, C, D bar.